It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Merlin Mann joins us to celebrate the brand new Beatles iPod? No, just the Beatles. Stay tuned. MacBreak Weekly. It's up next.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 221, recorded November 16th, 2010. Beatles Juice. MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Drobo, offering expandable storage products for individuals, small businesses, and creative teams. For $100 in holiday savings on a 4-day Drobo, visit drobo.com/MBW299. And by Hover.com. Hover is domain name registration and management that's simple. For 10% off your new domain, go to macbreak.hover.com. And by Gazelle, the easy way to sell or recycle the used gadgets lying around your home or office. Don't just sell it, Gazelle it. For a 5% bonus payment for your used gadgets, go to gazelle.com. Bonus code MacBreak. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, and boy, do we have a lot to talk about. And the good news is we've got a lot of people to talk about it, starting with my good friend, Alex Lindsay from the Pixel Corps, pixelcorps.com, for that great guild of multimedia artists who work and learn together to create fine things.
We create pretty pictures.
Pretty pictures.
That's what we do.
Pixelcorps.tv for the podcasts. Also here, he asked to be here, Mr. Merlin Mann, ladies and gentlemen, for You Look Nice Today and 43 Folders. And he's here for a very important reason, which we'll reveal in a moment. Also here. Hello. Also here. He's grumpy. He's gruff. He's the Andy Rooney of this show, Mr. Andy Ihnatko of the Chicago Sun-Times.
Actually, I have selected for this show the Edward R. Murrow shot.
Ah, I like that.
Or I'm going to be.
Where's your cigarette?
Well, exactly. Unfortunately, I don't smoke. Well, fortunately, but for the purposes of glamour, I don't smoke, unfortunately. But you notice that I seem more dynamic because the viewer thinks, oh, my God, I'm intruding on this incredibly important conversation that Andy is having with somebody else over there.
Oh, wait a minute. In that case, I should go to the two-shot. Now you can see he's actually looking at Merlin's butt. Merlin's
here we are on a rooftop in London. Got the press.
Is Paris burning? So this is London. We are here to celebrate, finally, I looked it up, 2 years and 6 months after Merlin Mann predicted the Yellow Submarine iPod, the release of the Beatles on digital.
With the inevitability and the speed of plate tectonics. The rumor has proven true.
Yeah. It's funny because Apple did this yesterday. They put up something on their page that said it was a Beatle quote, but I think a lot of people didn't pick up on it, that it was a Beatle quote.
Well, which one are you talking about? Because it wasn't a Beatle quote; it was a quote from one of the Beatles in his first solo number. I've already seen it. I've already seen this line dissected so much, saying that's not a Beatles song. It's a Paul McCartney song. And then someone has to say, "But wait a minute, he recorded it during the Let It Be session."
That's true.
Yeah, it wasn't released. It was like the first single. I don't care. I promise you I don't. I'll sign something to the effect that I don't care about this, son.
So what was the line?
It was Tomorrow Never Knows.
Tomorrow Never Knows.
What was it? I've already started purging things from my memory.
I know. I'm trying to.
This was such an Olympic scale disappointment.
Was it really?
Well, I mean, they took over the whole front page of Apple.
It was pretty obvious to me that it was the Beatles, and knowing Steve Jobs and how hard he's been trying to get the Beatles on, and of course the rancor between Apple Corps and Apple Computers.
Yeah, I think in the land of this is the gift that you can give someone who has everybody. Apple has everything else, and what they wanted was the Beatles.
In the land of Cupertino, this is a huge announcement. The rest of the world is like, what?
Well, I think the problem is that the Beatles are great, but I think most people who thought the Beatles were great already have it in their MP3 library. I mean, they either ripped their CDs or they found it on the internet, or they, it just seems like, and my parents will buy it on iTunes, but I don't
think it's for your parents. Go ahead, Andy.
Well, this is the point that I was making. There are two things going on here. Up until yesterday, I would have said that if there's going to be any one band that will never release their CDs on iTunes, it would be the Beatles, because people don't necessarily want to buy just one track off of Sgt. Pepper. They can definitely, quote, force people to buy the entire CD and have no problems with that. But then the later thing that makes more sense is that just because when I grew up, when I was starting to formulate my own musical taste, the Beatles were already 20 years old. And now the current generation of young adults, now it's 4 decades old, some of this music. And so a lot of the fight is just among the Beatles is just to try to make sure that their music is still relevant and still available. There was a really bad, sort of influenced by, there was a really, really bad John Lennon commercial for some car in Europe that has really badly overdubbed like interview footage of him, and like I like it's like almost like an American was overdubbed. Oh, the thing is, we shouldn't be too connected to the past. Let's start something new. And you could tell it was like matched up. And there was a lot, and they dug up the actual interview footage in which he says nothing of the sort. And so, as always, Yoko got in the neck for that. But they're making the statement that, look, I know that sometimes this might be a kind of a jar, but we have to make sure that John Lennon stays in the public eye, that he's still like a familiar face and a familiar voice.
That's a valuable property. Let's not forget that this is all about making money.
Right. Well, also, all the Beatles have money. I think they're more concerned to make sure that the Beatles catalog remains part of the world soundtrack, which is what it is. I mean, I'm sure that everybody in this conversation now.
It's not just the Beatles. It's EMI, which has been struggling. EMI is the one that needs to make the money right now.
Yeah, it seems like they had. This is a long throw into the
long and winding road.
Oh yeah, into the end zone.
I think it's all. When I say entirely symbolic, I don't mean that in a negative way. I think in a really fascinating way, it's really symbolic. I think most of what everybody just said is kind of half right. The part about the Beatles, yeah, they got the money, yeah, they want their legacy out there, but it's like the 2 most popular kids in high school like getting engaged. This is, the thing is for the Beatles, when I say the Beatles, I mean the Beatles as a kind of an institution. I mean, what happens? The richest rich guy in the world is still giving money to colleges so that they'll build buildings with his name on it. Like, what more could you achieve, right? But with the Beatles, I think it's something where, yeah, being on the homepage of the Apple thing is I'm sure every single aspect of this was negotiated to the nth degree forever, every bit of the wording, I'm guessing. But so from the Beatles standpoint, no, they don't need the dough, probably. I mean, we say the Beatles, it's Olivia and Yoko and everybody.
Ringo maybe more than the rest of them, let's be honest.
Well, Ringo didn't get Ringo had so few songwriting credits, and that's where the dough is.
He doesn't get much money.
But from a Beatles standpoint, I don't have much of an opinion of the Beatles. I think with the Beatles, it burnishes their image, right? And they keep putting out this box set and stuff like that. But from Apple's point of view... What?
They're already the frickin' Beatles, man. How much
what kind of image burnishing?
But think about what you just said, Andy. I'm just straight to your point.
It burnishes it for the kids. Think of the kids.
It's not so much burnishing their image. It's not the association with Apple. It's the fact that they need to have their music available through the retail channels that the current generation is using.
I think
it's the same reason why they decided to make a version of Rock Band for the Beatles. Some people might have thought that was tacky a few years ago, but that's how new generations get exposed to music nowadays.
Right. I honestly think that is just one part of it. I think the other part of it is that this is an alliance that makes both sides look better. And for the Beatles, what I'm trying to say is the sales are there for the Beatles. They have evergreen content that's always going to sell. But to your point, like you said, whatever, it was 40 years old a few years ago, so on. But from Apple's point of view, yeah, maybe it's Steve Jobs likes the Beatles, but I don't know if this number's up to date, but there's this statistic out, that Apple's like the biggest music retailer now.
90% of all digital sales are through Apple, but
they're already the largest. But they're also the
largest retailer. But most records, most music is still on CD. Almost, I think it's 3/4.
Well,
the last figure I saw was something like 82%.
But it's dropping like a rock.
Close to 80%.
Well, if I can finish the thought. All I'm trying to say is that the trend line, it's like when you do a stock. We watch two stock trend lines. If you do growth on Microsoft versus Apple from 1986 on, it tells one story. If you do growth on Apple from 2001 on, or however you want to start measuring, it tells a slightly different story. And in this case, I think it's not just about those numbers. I think it's precisely about the Venn diagram that describes both of these worlds, right? So yeah, the Beatles are getting out there, but what Apple's really doing is saying, hey, we have arrived. We just got something. I just reread 1984, and there's that whole part at the end where O'Brien is saying to Winston Smith, this is power for power's sake.
Hold on
It's
just
power.
a second. TriCaster crashed. So you were making a point, Merlin Mann, before we got rudely interrupted. Do you have any idea what that point was?
Oh, just it's a small fact, and I don't have much to back this up, but I think the trend line is, sounds so obvious until you square it against what everybody's saying about this. The trend line is clearly that digital. Well, let me put it this way. Downloads are where it's going. Making money from downloads is even better. And the trend line for downloads is clearly in Apple's favor right now. And to Andy's point about this being old music, which I agree with, I mean, people who want the Beatles know where to get the Beatles. It's not hard. It's more a question that Apple is establishing themselves as exactly what they are, which is the big player right now. And I think by doing this and promoting it in the way that they are, they're what I was saying, I was just rereading 1984, and there's this scene where O'Brien is, torturing Winston Smith, and there's this whole long part where he's just saying the reason for power is power, the reason for torture is torture. And I was thinking, I couldn't get that out of my head because I think this is just a bold, brazen power move. It's great. They'll sell some records. They'll probably continue to break even or lose money like they have, but they're swinging a lot of lumber right now to say we got something nobody else can get. You'll notice it wasn't AC/DC or Bob Seger that they got. It wasn't those holdouts. It was the Beatles. And nobody else got that.
And if AC/DC and Bob Seger thought that they were going to get something out of holding out like they were going to be...
It's a little late for that.
Yeah, it's over now.
Say what you will, but they're evergreen. I mean, they continue to sell records, those guys. And that's the kind of, whatever, long tail, whatever you want to call it, that these companies kill for. I mean, how many people are going to be buying Hoedown Throwdown 5 years from now? But people are going to continue to buy,
But Lennon 2010, appropriately named, points out that you can get on iTunes, Beatles Revolver is $12.99. You can buy it on CD for $7.99, and that's higher quality. I mean...
And my only point is not that this music is dying out, but only that they had a really good revenue stream via CD. I don't feel as though they had an absolute need to move to digital. This is definitely a good way to make sure that you're putting in front of the young folks who may not
That's
necessarily...
what I think.
Yeah, well, I think also...
But also, it's also the reason why NBC was so eager to make sure that they keep Jay Leno, even if it's in the 10 p.m. slot. It was important. It was valuable to Apple to get the Beatles. It's prestigious for Apple, good attention getting for Apple. But also, it's just as important they make sure that Amazon does not get the Beatles first.
Yeah.
Because that will be a huge disaster.
And I think that for Apple, $20 million of advertising and probably whatever else they're doing, and we don't know that. I'm just making that number up.
It's at least that, I'm sure.
But at least that $20 or $30 million of advertising is noise for Apple. But EMI needs the punch right now.
EMI,
they need that cash. And a little while ago we heard that Paul McCartney said it's all up to EMI at this point. Beatles are out of it,
right?
And EMI now needs as much cash as they can get. So getting Apple to spend 20 or 30 million to give them 20 or 30 million is
if you love
keeps
the Beatles and have not yet bought the box set, it's $149 on iTunes. It's $129 on Amazon. Buy it on Amazon and rip it.
They just, Amazon dropped their price on that box set.
I do notice that.
I don't know. I hear everybody saying contradictory things, though. On the one, we keep going back and forth between, people, it's still mostly CDs versus da-da-da-da. Well, for Apple to announce, hey, guess what? You can buy OK Computer. Well, Uncle Joe's going to hear that and go, OK, what? Computer what? But you go, they've got the Beatles. And suddenly, maybe a bunch of people who have an iPod and haven't bought stuff in the past are going to go back to the store. And what does that do? That gets them back in the habit of thinking of iTunes, again, as their home for this stuff. I don't think it's not about money. Obviously, it's about money on some level, but like the iTunes store itself, it's not about the obvious money. It's about a much bigger play. Apple is establishing themselves as this company that's much bigger than Walmart in terms of, we want to move units. They wanted to move those units,
right,
and nobody else got to.
Did this also have anything to do with the Apple Core versus Apple issue? I mean, is this also a way of burying the hatchet on that, or is that...
I don't think that was a major issue at all.
Not
at this point. Not at this point.
Right.
I don't know. I'm sure. What does Apple Core have besides that? It's Badfinger? What
they do have Badfinger, yes.
And I love Badfinger. Don't get me wrong.
But no, you're right.
No, I mean, like they're really the most underrated band of all time. But like, what else has Apple Corps got that's like burying the needle right now? You know?
Well, nothing. But the point is that I remember Apple Corps sued Apple, saying you said you'd never get in the music business, and here you are in the music business. And that lawsuit, I'm sure, got settled with some big chunk of change. But I think in a way also will be seen, maybe not, with any reality, as kind of the end of that chapter as well.
This is a little random, but
Apple now owns Apple entirely.
Yeah.
Did you guys see Clay Shirky's article on his latest article about the failure of the paywall at Fox News? So basically, well, it was like everything Clay, he just sweats smart. He's such a smart guy, but it was such a great piece on basically the fact that I don't know the exact details, but Rupert Murdoch, the News Corp decided to put their two biggest English papers behind a paywall, and Clay runs some of the math on that of what it means to them in the long run. He ran several different ways to figure out how much they made / lost from that, and it's kind of staggering. And the upshot of what he says is that this is exactly the same thing that's happened. There's nothing new about this failure. What's new about it is it's starting to really feel like people are going, this is my words, not his, it's really not going to be 1972 again. And we need to start dipping our toes a little bit deeper into this water if we want to stay alive. I mean, the numbers, it used to be, it all seemed like funny money. But I think now, this is, again, I don't think this is really about the Beatles. I think this is about where this stuff is heading. And so, anyway, I just think it's an interesting orthogonal angle to this because these big companies are finally, I think they're running out of dough.
Yeah.
I think they thought that they could litigate this long enough that people would just decide to buy CDs forever. But that trend line is not strong right now.
Well, it's not strong anywhere either. I mean, you look at the cable companies trying to, keep track of the, they're trying to keep it from becoming dumb pipes.
But can I point out that EMI worked this perfectly? It was a year ago. They came out with a box set. They milked every penny out of the CD buyers they could. And then they said, okay, now Apple's going to give us some nice advertising, and maybe we'll get the kids. You've never been able to buy many of the Beatles songs as singles before. Now we're going to sell every one of them at $1.29, I might add.
But I think this is kind of like a football team that's losing 40 to 20, and suddenly they get a lot of yards. They get a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns, but I think that it might be a little too late.
But I think there's revenue. I think there's revenue here.
No, there's revenue.
One thing that's worth reiterating. I think I've said this before. Someone on the show has mentioned it before, but I learned this not long ago. It drives me that crap crazy. I post a lot of videos on my stupid blog, like a lot of videos that people hate, but I love it. And I'm forever having to go and hit the embed button to make sure it's embeddable. Now, anything by EMI, anything by Sony, anything by any of the majors, well, there's two things at play here. Number one is you can't embed almost any major label. And number two, they've heavily policed anybody who's trying to get around that by posting Wildcat. And what I learned not long ago that I think is worth repeating if people don't know it, why that is. YouTube only pays their little pennies for views to those guys if it's viewed on the YouTube site. Oh. EMI does not get paid for an embed. That is why videos are not embeddable. Is
that true for us?
It's true for everybody. You don't
make money on an embed?
No, to my and anybody, chat room can fact check me on this. It is my understanding the only way YouTube will pay you, or maybe it's a matter of order of magnitude difference in payment, but it's my understanding the only payments they make
makes sense.
Think about it.
That's where they get advertising.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where the ads are.
But to me, that's so telling. That's so telling. You know who paid for those videos in almost every instance? The band. The band paid for those videos. It comes out, it's recoupable. It comes straight out of their own money. So with the police paid to have next to you
those are those crappy contracts, record label contracts.
But it's true to this day. You still pay if you're an artist.
That's what OK Go, a very famous open letter to EMI. OK Go said, you can't, all right, we're bye.
Right.
But to your point, Leo, I think you're right about the publicity, or the publicity is maybe the wrong word, attention. It's really about attention. And so they're very happy to capitalize on the economies of scale of putting all this stuff up on YouTube. But they're not willing to really take that to the next level and say, well, we want to let people, share this and so forth. It's still about the dough.
Well, and
this was a surprise image, though, I have to say, when I saw this on Apple's site. I just didn't expect that.
I think when you negotiate, Leo,
I'll give you 5 cents for the advertising rights on that. Is that really Yoko's legs, or did you put her head on somebody else?
No, I did a bad magic wand job, but other than that, it's pure Yoko.
Wow. This is from the aforementioned blog Kung Fu Grip that you also put us in. I love it. That's the one thing, by the way, you don't normally ever see if we've done our job properly on our show is this, because that's supposed to be cut out.
See, that's why the kids love that. That's they call that what, B-roll? It's like a bonus
behind the
feature.
scenes. Yeah,
well, so you understand, now we can cuss all we want because the editors are going to cut out.
They're very
this
confused.
bit.
Yeah, exactly.
They're very confused. They said, should I cut that?
From now on, unless I'm wearing the moose antlers.
We just showed this slide that we put up when we want the editors to cut for those of you listening on audio. No,
So anyway, yeah,
okay, go. Okay, go. Now it'll be interesting to see. I hope Clay Shirky writes a similar article. The opposite of a paywall. Companies like bands like OK Go who leave an established label because EMI, because they wouldn't allow them to embed videos, and have a great video site and do a lot of great videos. Did it help the band or not? That'll be an interesting.
But you know what it is, Leo? Last thing, and then I'll shut up forever. You wish is that this is not about going. Oh, I'm right about this. I'm right. Like in my case, like I'm always the strident. Nobody gets this guy. But you know what I really am is I'm the guy who's willing to evolve about this. And OK Go, like Jonathan Colton. Jonathan Colton gave away his songs, but now you got to pay for the old songs. Yeah, Jonathan Colton's a nice guy, but he's also a guy who has to make a living.
Yep.
But you got to evolve. It's not a question of whether you want to be right one time in 1972 or right one time in 2005. It's about responding to the market in a way that makes even an iota of sense.
Well, I think you also have to look at the market and make sure that you're actually going into it in a way that makes sense for your listeners. I mean, I think that we've seen successes. Annie DeFranco kind of built up her whole following without a label.
Is that true?
Yeah, I don't think she's ever had a label.
No, I've bought her in record stores.
Oh,
It's
you
her
bought her
own
in
label.
record stores, but it's her own label.
It's her own label.
Yeah, 9 Inch Nails, gave away, put up their entire album, sold a collector's, version of it for $250 a pop, sold 3,000 of them in a week.
But did they get this kind of publicity on the Apple page? That's the question.
Oh no, but they're not the Beatles.
They're not the Beatles, right?
So
there's a lot of bands that are happy to give it away, just to be aware, and then they evolve, and then if they can sell an EP at a
do you
show,
think
they'll
this
do
kind
that.
of blatant commercialism is going to irk some Beatles fans?
Did you ever see the Beatles cartoons?
I
Leo?
guess they were the first band really to do this.
Yeah.
There's George, by the way, without a cigarette, because we wouldn't want the kids to think that George smoked and died of cancer or anything.
Right.
They have a very limited number of pictures in these.
In some ways, it would almost been useful to leave that cigarette in to remind people that it's not a good thing.
Yeah, I think Ken Burns is getting 8 cents for every one of these.
It is the
videos.
Ken Burns pan.
Yeah.
They're also, and we know that the Apple iTunes and iPod ads sell music because a lot of unknown bands have sold a lot of records because of being featured on Apple ads.
Well, I mean, in the
so
apps.
this has some huge value, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Notice they pick one song for each ad, and I guarantee you those 5 songs are going to end up on the bestseller list.
We were watching an app with the iPhone, the iPad ad last night.
Yeah.
And there was one where you trace over the letters. My wife looked at it and said, "I need you to put that on your son's iPad."
Me too. Yeah.
Like she's like, "I need you to get."
Well,
that
we know it
ad."
works because they actually now have a section on the iTunes on the App Store that says stuff you saw on TV.
I was talking to a developer who said it's just like manna
gold.
from heaven. I mean, you get on one of those ads and it's just you're just printing money.
It's gold. So I did not wait for the Beatles to do this. I last year bought the box set. Most Beatles fans agree that was the thing to do, to buy the remastered box set. Did you get the stereo or the mono, Merlin? Or I bet you got both.
You got to go mono, no question.
Okay. See, I bought stereo. What am I?
No, they're both good. I've got them both.
That's what I thought. All right.
And I've got I got the Ebbets remasters. I got them all.
Yeah, all right.
That's the good stuff. To go for the Ebbets if you have a computer.
Is that? But that's bootleg, yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a computer.
Yeah.
But get the Ebbets bootlegs. That's what you need. But no, the mono was the true mix of most of those records. That was the mix that they supervised and approved of. But they're all great. They're all
one more
great.
item, and then we'll move on to other news because there's a lot of other news. There was, I think, for some reason, I thought it was pretty obvious it was a Beatles announcement. Then got confirmation from a source yesterday that yes, it is a Beatles announcement. There was a lot of speculation. Oh, maybe when you're going to change the world, maybe you'll do subscription.
Right. Well, I still think that's the scorched earth. I mean, that is like nothing left in the music. No competition.
Peter
left if they
Kafka
do
pointed
that.
out in All Things Digital on the web that this couldn't be because there's been no noise at all from the record labels that we're making a deal with Apple, and they would absolutely have to go along with this. So This is it. This is the Beatles catalog and nothing more.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't. Yesterday morning, I was pretty certain that it had to be some sort of an expansion of content and not a new feature, because too many other things would have had to have happened in order to add new features to iTunes. And one of the biggest cues was the fact that every indication was just that we're going to make an announcement tomorrow by just updating the website.
Right.
If it were something that if it wasn't something that was going to require a live demo to show off, here's how this works now, here's why there's a new button in iTunes, and here's why you need to download a new version of iOS.
If Apple had put out yet another invitation to go to Cupertino, which would have been like the third in the last 3 months, I think everybody would have said,
they wouldn't have had to do that. They could have just done something at Town Hall that simply said, oh, by the way, we're going to be broadcasting live from Town Hall with Steve Jobs and
we would have
very special guests and 2 urns. We'll leave you to fill in.
It was interesting. The semiotics of the announcement. My friend Norman, who's a Beatleologist, pointed out that the red circle around the 4 clocks was an echo of the semaphore from the Help album cover, and if you juxtapose them, it's the same red oval, and the Beatles, of course, are going like this, but the clock hands echo the Beatles hands. I thought that was quite interesting.
Well, no, see, not really. I mean, I've got it in front of me. I have a screen capture of the thing on my site. I'm looking at it right now, and I don't see any red oval. And also,
there's no red oval. Maybe Norman added it. Oh, okay.
And when somebody mentioned the hands to me, I, of course, immediately looked at the Help album cover, and the hands don't really match up.
Oh, never mind.
It's in retrospect, you can see why there are 4 clock hands, but it's. But yesterday, when people were saying, "Oh, that's it, that's the slam dunk," I'm saying, "No, it's not a slam dunk. It's the number 4. It appears in horology all over the place."
When are we going to get horology?
Speaking of tour buses, anyway.
When are we going to get the North Carolina things going online end of the year? When are we going to get that announcement? And what is it going to be?
The North Carolina facility, it's like, it is to Apple rumors what the guy in Dealey Plaza with the umbrella is to the Kennedy assassination. Yeah. Every time you have some sort of cockamamie theory and you're looking for evidence that, yes, your cockamamie theory is true, well, they're building that data center in top secret that nobody's supposed to know about. Like, well, no, I mean, it's
Area 51. It's the Apple Area 51.
So this is just Norman's edit by putting the oval in and juxtaposing it with the Beatles. You're right. The hands don't match except the last 2 hands match, kind of, sort of. You're right.
The third one matches. That's definitely 3 o'clock. Well done, that man. The other, but that's
as usual. Paul gets it right, and the rest of the guys,
too stoned to even care. They're on their skiing holiday. They agreed to do some shooting and some video.
Whatever.
After that,
let's. Where is Dylan when we need him? Let's take a break. When we come back, there are some very big stories. One just broke. It's not in our rundown, and Merlin has story 2 for us. This show brought to you by our good friends at Drobo. You just got the new Drobo S, Alex, with the 3.0 USB and all that.
I did. I have it.
Awesome.
I have it in the Lindsay labs, and the big thing is that now you have FireWire 800, you have USB 3 eSATA, so you really have a future-proof, Drobo S that is you're going to be able to, that for the next couple of years, all the major connectivity pieces that you have, and otherwise it works just like another Drobo, and it's a little safety blanket.
We love it.
It's really, really awesome.
For those who don't know, we talk about it so much. I'm sure everybody knows, but it's an drive enclosure of a variety of different kinds, from 4 to 8 discs. Data redundancy, so you can never lose a data. Hot swappable drive, so you increase storage easily.
And people will say, "Oh, well, you can do that with RAID 5, and you can do but if you know what you're doing and you keep everything the same, and there's a lot more technology. If you just want to have something that works, and you can have a drive fail, and you can just pull it out and replace it. When you fill it up, you can kind of softly, increase the capacity. There's just nothing easier. If you don't want to be thinking about it.
We love Drobo. Now, but we got a special Thanksgiving special. Ooh. A special Thanksgiving special. Is that redundant? This is the new Drobo URL. You've got to use this one. I'm going to change the link on our video, because it is now drobo.com/MBW299. Drobo.com/MBW299. This is only good through Black Friday, midnight Friday, November 26th. You have to purchase it from the Drobo store. Here you go. Get ready. Stand back. This is good for listeners in North America, UK, and the EU. Save $100 off the purchase of a 4-drive Drobo. When you go to drobostore.com, use the code MBW299, all caps, or $125 off a Drobo bundle populated with hard drives. That's a good deal. $100 off the Drobo, 4-drive Drobo enclosure. You got to be in North America for that second deal, the $125 off the populated Drobo.
It's a great.
Boy, that's a great price.
Great price, and it's a great value. I mean, it just really is
that's the original Drobo.
We've kind of gone from using 1 terabyte to 2 terabytes, so I'm slowly moving all my Drobos to 2 terabytes.
8
pop it in, let it
terabytes of
heal.
storage.
It's 10 with the 5 discs.
That's amazing.
And man, I paid $11,000 for an X-Ray. That's all I want to say. And it's got 7 terabytes of storage.
Well,
Not that I'm bitter.
You know what they say. You put all of your stuff. But why am I saying it when we could let the singers sing it?
Put all of your stuff on a Drobo.
Drobo.com/MBW299. Offer ends November, what did I say, 26th?
26th?
Friday at midnight.
And that was recorded during the Revolver recording sessions, but it was ultimately not released until it was a B-side of one of the Let It Be sessions, I think.
And then, of course, there's this one.
Australian B-side.
They recorded this during a visit to Algeria. Brian Jones very famously spiked their matcha.
During one of Lennon's famous Lost Weekends.
Yes. Item 2, ladies and gentlemen, from Mr. Merlin Mann.
What did I say I was going to talk about?
I knew that was coming.
I knew you would do that. That's why I threw it to you. I don't remember either.
Did I say I was going to say something?
Yeah, remember you said I want item 2, but maybe it was more Beatles.
Oh.
We're done with the Beatles. I don't want to talk about them anymore. Because if I do,
let me do
I'll
number
have to...
3. I'll handle number 3.
Okay. By the way, what we don't know is whether Rhapsody, Napster, when are these guys going to get the Beatles?
I'm going to guess that if Apple put so much PR into it, they get a little bit of
exclusive
ramp
for a while. Yeah, 6 months, something like that.
The only thing we know for sure is that they have an exclusive through at least January. All Things D, I think, interviewed someone about it, and they said that it's secure through 2011, but they would not be drawn out into a specific month or a specific day.
One thing Apple did not do, we all thought... Apple never said, I might point out, but all the rumor mill said that Friday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, last Friday, that Apple would release iOS 4.2, and then they released iTunes 10.1.
I was talking to someone in the Pixel Core today, and she was like, Carolyn was saying that she would be more excited about the iOS 4 for her iPad than the Beatles.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's the deal? Again, rumor mill, we don't know.
Day.
Apple doesn't say, but rumor mill was there was a Wi-Fi issue. Steve's not here, is he? I put 4.2 the developer. I paid $99 to be a developer because I still do want to develop. You probably have the developer. Yep. So we got 4.2 as a result. We can't talk about it.
I can't talk about it either.
None of us can talk about it.
It's a long silence.
But I could probably say that I tried it, and the Gold Master seemed quite robust. I didn't see any Wi-Fi issues, so I don't know what's holding it up.
Yeah, it does every day. It feels more dated when you go back and forth from an iPhone 4 to the iPad.
They need to do this.
Downright frustrating.
AirPrint AirPrint, is that what they call it? AirPrint is in the 10.1. You need that. AirPlay is also in 10.1. You need the AirPrint to print AirPlay to what?
I think it's to watch the videos and listen to music
through the iPad onto your TV
on your iPad from an iTunes server, I believe.
Got it.
Or from from another computer with iTunes.
Got it. They did also push a huge patch. 10.5.6 was ginormous. In fact, a record for the most patches on OS 10. Lots of security fixes. Nothing anybody, I guess, was super worried about, but 10.6, a.k.a. Snow Leopard, and 10.5, a.k.a. Leopard, both received patches fixing 130 vulnerabilities.
Wow. Well, they're listening to somebody.
Yeah, except they're not listening to Charlie Miller, the guy who continually wins in Pwn to Own up there in Vancouver. You know, the first person to take over a Windows, Mac, or Linux machine. He always wins, usually by finding flaws in Safari. He says, Apple released huge patch on Twitter, but still misses all my bugs. He says, makes you realize how many bugs are in their code, or they're very unlucky. So there's still stuff out there, according to Charlie.
None in the wild. There's a lot of stuff in the wild.
None in the wild. They're known.
Right.
They may, the truth is they may even be in the wild, but if you're a bad guy and you know that 95% of the market is held by Windows machines, 3/4 of which are not patched, what are you going to write malware for?
Is that a real number?
95% is a real number. We don't know how many unpatched Windows machines there are,
Wow.
but every time I see a stat, it's more than half.
Right.
So let's say there's 150 million unpatched Windows machines. Who are you gonna call?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an illusion to think that any of us are that secure, unfortunately. I mean, there's precautions and there's more precautions, but the thing I always think about, because my racket is, there's productivity stuff and things like email, and I think it's so interesting that, you think about, like Mitnick has said, a lot of it's just social engineering.
Right.
The thing is, if you put anything in email, you don't need to get into the most secure person in the world's email. You need to get into their like assistant's email or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like your email is everybody else's email too. Your files. So the thing that freaks me out about Dropbox in particular, in some ways, is that until they really, 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 really support sparse images, the way I want to use them, anything that you put in Dropbox and share with people is in their Dropbox, and
Right.
there's nothing to keep them from making their password pencil.
Right.
And I think that as more stuff goes in the cloud and as more stuff gets shared through things like email or even services like Facebook, I mean, there's just so much stuff that we're counting on, a well-maintained MySQL database to take care of. It's the password to get into Twitter's intranet was happiness.
Right.
You'll remember. I mean, I don't know.
I have to admit, I've complained many times about the fact that every time I buy an application on my, on the iTunes store, that I have to put in my password, which is a little bit of a hash, so it's really a pain in the neck to do. And I didn't think it was that. I mean, I thought it was a real pain in the neck until my son figured out how to get to the App Store. My 3-year-old son goes to the App Store, and I see him constantly going up there and then banging around and not being able to order it because he can't put the password in. I'm like, it's
a good thing.
Low-level security.
Google's finally introduced. I'm going to talk on my butt. I'm not like a pro on this stuff, but the 2 levels of authentication, which I think is a pretty good idea. I think stuff like Dropbox should start introducing that. And you might have, like in Alex's case, this is something I would love on iOS, is 2 levels of security. I'd like a screen door for stuff like,
You're talking about two-factor authentication, where there's a login and password, and then you have a card, or it sends you a text message with something physically that you have that is then required in addition.
But two clear text strings, if you think about it, are just still 2 clear text strings.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 characters long. Copy and paste still works. There's with my phone, I agree, Alex, and I have mine set to kind of lock and stuff like that. But I mean, how many times have we seen where there's an emergency call bug? It seems like almost every release there's an emergency call bug where you can just hit a couple things and unlock it. I don't know. I don't know if sparse images are the answer, but the problem with something like Dropbox is if you keep stuff on a sparse image, at least in my experimenting with it, and by that I just mean it's a disk image that's pretty well encrypted. It's a folder with encryption basically, and the problem is if it's mounted somewhere. I don't think it only syncs when it's unmounted. So it's not like you can really treat it like a network drive. I mean, I think that's metaphorically symbolic of where this stuff should go, which is kind of like it's like a safe inside of a safe. You know what I mean? Like you could have kind of trivial stuff sitting around on your coffee table, but you're going to put your Kruger hands in something a little more secure.
I always have I don't encrypt my entire hard drive, but I always have a sparse image, an encrypted sparse image on there for anything that is important enough that I want to make sure that if, God forbid, my laptop gets stolen or if someone gets access to it, that it's the one file on the hard drive that has like that really stupid 42-character long string of almost random numbers and digits. Because that's where the important stuff goes. But I think the important lesson is that I love Dropbox. I don't think there's a bigger supporter of Dropbox than I, and I'm an avid user. But I still can't lose sight of that basic mentality that I'm not going to put on anything on cloud storage that would embarrass, humiliate me, expose me to legal issues if I had it up there. So that's why if I need to share a picture with somebody. And it's not, and I'm not talking about gross pictures. But I'm talking about, you're at the Christmas party and you don't necessarily want to post pictures of all your friends to your public Flickr feed. But that's the sort of thing where, okay, I don't know, I don't care if it is going to be an 8 megabyte file attachment. I'm really going to have to send that directly because I have to assume that everything in my Dropbox is going to be found.
And everybody acts like this is like real, like, tinfoil hat stuff. But then you look at was it Jeff Atwood had a great post about the, what was it called? The Firefox thing that could steal cookies through the air. And anyway, Jeff
Fire
from...
sheep.
Yeah, Jeff from, what is it? Coding Horror, what's that his site? Smart guy, does Stack Overflow. He had a great post about this. He's like, this is what it is. There's a reason, that cookies and SSL kind of came about on the web at the same time, HTTPS or whatever, that implementation, because people understood what a cookie is. A cookie is a string. It's not like some magical thing that's like locked in a secret box. It's a string, and if that gets passed, I've used sites over the years where the documented way to log in was by passing clear text passwords in an URL. So, you put that in Google Reader, there's stuff like that everywhere. And what he's saying is basically, hey, in some ways, yeah, it's awful that this thing's out there, but it's really just making it clear to people exactly what Andy's saying, which is, just because your password is, hard to type doesn't mean you're immune. You know what I mean?
And if
you go to Starbucks, somebody's going to sniff it.
And if you're an Apple user, you shouldn't assume that just because there aren't a lot of targeted, rather a lot of viruses in the wild that are not targeted. If you're a company using Macs, spear phishing, people are going to say, oh, let's go after Pixel Core. We know they use a lot of Macs. Let's take one of these remaining vulnerabilities and send an email to everybody at Pixel Core. This kind of spear phishing is of real concern. So if you do have a company running Macs, you got to be.
Well, it's hard. I don't know what to trust. Like I got an email from you earlier.
Don't trust that. No.
Yeah, and no, it was like, but I was like,
but I never put an attachment on an email.
No, it's not an attachment, but it's like an invitation. But I don't know whether it's, a lot of times I just don't know anymore.
Right.
I get to a point where I don't know whether that link is valid or not.
Right.
People send me like Plaxo. I don't really know. Like
that's why
those are the kind of things I just.
If you do get email from me, you will get an attachment. You'll get an SMIME attachment. You'll get a secure certificate that will let you know that I sent it. If you get email from me that doesn't have a certificate on it, I didn't send it.
Is the first time you open up console. Let's say you do what Apple wants you to do, and you run. There's several things about what Apple would like you to do that are worth looking at. The canonical example, I think, being you have a password for your Mobile Me, right? They want you to put everything on Mobile Me, which is swell. But then, like you say, Alex, if you want to go buy something on your iPhone, there's the one password that you would use to buy stuff.
They've had problems with this, by the way. They've been
Anybody here on an Apple TV? Anybody an old school? Anybody ever try to enter a secure password using the white?
Oh man,
that's no fun.
Yeah,
I've never gotten it on less than like the fourth try. And so what do? You dumb it down.
Right.
And combine that with something like Mobile Me. Anybody ever opens up console and goes and checks their log on their firewall, it would blow your mind. Just watching, if you open up the log on a time machine or a time capsule or whatever, the log on just the port scanning would curl your hair.
Right. That's absolutely true. Among other patches on this, there were 4 Flash patches. Apple is apparently still fixing Flash for Adobe. That was nice of them. Actually, I'm sorry. Did I say 4? 55. I made it a boo-boo. 55 Flash patches. Of the non-Flash patches were 41%. 41% of the total fixed in 10.6.5.
Well, something that's that executable, I think, is always going to have.
Flash is a nasty problem. Let's see, what else? 79 non-Flash patches. 16 were related to X11, Apple's X window system. 9 affected QuickTime. 4 were in OS X's Image I/O component. Another 4 in Apple Type Services, the font renderer. So there's some, these are some deep roots into the operating system here that presumably would allow code to be executed. 3 of the 9 QuickTime vulnerabilities were reported by HP's Tipping Point. It's kind of interesting. Nick or I'm sorry, Nils, a researcher who works at MWR Info Security in Basingstoke, England, reported one of the QuickTime flaws. I'm just giving credit where credit's due.
Please hold your applause.
Hold your applause to the end. There's
bug has
there's
been done.
139 of them.
When
It's like
people
the
are
te-
when
it's like the
people are
technical Oscars.
It is. They gave the technical Oscars, didn't they? I was so
In a
sad that
ceremony recorded
Yeah.
last night.
they did the Irving Thalberg Award already.
Yeah.
They're not even going to do that on on stage in, what is it, February?
But
Yeah, I
I'm
get
sure
it.
that every single second of the telecast will be absolute gold. With not
Yeah.
a single wasted moment.
I have to admit, I just
I'm
kind
sure
of.
we'll
I just
still have
wanna-
10 minutes of awkward. Harrison Ford, you taught a generation
Yeah.
what it was
Oh.
like to dream in your character. I, as an actor. Oh.
Shemp Howard.
I just have to admit that I just can't.
You know who won the Irving Thalberg this year?
I don't.
Francis Ford Coppola. Just think.
Oh, nice.
Just think what a great montage
Know what I made?
that would have made.
Schmopola, Schmopola.
Coppola Schmopola.
They still haven't forgiven him for One from the Heart. I think that's very
Maybe that might be. Eli Wallach got an honorary Oscar. You know how old Eli Wallach is?
She's still alive?
He's still 95 years old. Gotta love him.
Is that Tuco Benedito Pacifico Juan Maria Ramirez? Wasn't he in Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Was that Eli Wallach?
I might have been. I think he was on the waterfront. These guys been around a long time.
Yeah.
And Jean-Luc Godard, who got an honorary Oscar and said, "I will not accept, so do not give it to me."
He had an Indian pick it up for him.
Yeah, I thought, anyway. I don't know how I got
Yep,
into that.
Eli Wallach. Eli Wallach was Tuco. That's
Tuco.
a hell of a movie.
That's a good. I'm sure there's more Mac news. Let's take a break and come back, and we'll find it for you. And maybe you'll find your number two.
I'm on it.
The head-to-head of the BlueBerry tablet against the iPad in web browsing. We could talk about that.
I have some tablets here, by the way. I've been playing with the Samsung Galaxy Tab. Don't laugh. You know what?
No, I'm sure it's cool. It's
I
just-
think Steve was wrong about 7 inches. 7 inches is enough.
Oh, we can talk about that. I got mine a few days ago too.
I kind of like it, but we'll talk about that. And then we got a number of Android. These are all Android devices, so I should probably just save it for the Twig show. But a couple of really impressive. Yeah, it's not a good phone, but a couple of really impressive low-cost Android devices from Archos. I had first thought Android was not going to make and 7 inches not going to be a good choice. I might want to modify that, but I'll be very curious what you have to say, Andy. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Before we do, I would like to mention our good friends at hover.com. In fact, if you're ready to do a domain thing, you're going to register a domain name. You know, and I know there are many of us who, as soon as we hear a good name, we go, I got to register that. Can I recommend MacBreak.hover.com? It's clean, it's simple, it's efficient. They don't upsell you with a lot of, here, try this one. This is charged up. You get a chance to see how that works. And I'll charge up this. Unfortunately, the Samsung requires a proprietary 30-pin charger. So it's not charged up. I have to bring it home. Hover.com does some very basic things. Of course, they do the DNS redirection. So if you're going to set up a domain name, it points to your site. They also do email. They'll do email forwarding. They do have very good privacy controls. In fact, you know, the other guys will charge you for domain name privacy. It's built into the Hover registration. Hover domain transfers are free. They do charge $10 to extend the domain registration 1 year past its current expiration date. See, I think that's a good deal. You want to try it? Go to macbreak.hover.com. Macbreak.hover.com. It's from the folks at Two Cows. Used to be Domains Direct. Maybe you know that name better. It's we're moving all of our sites over. Those other guys locked my sites. They do that at the drop of a hat, so I have to wait till next month to get the rest of them.
Not that he's bitter.
Locked it because of what?
Whoa, we don't want some bad guy to take your site away from you.
That's very Network Solutions.
Yeah, they're all that way, except for Hover. I love Hover. I want you to try it right now. They also have a great no-hold policy for calls during business hours. They guarantee you they're going to solve that problem without putting you on hold. And let me tell you, after being on hold for a long time about my locked domains, I kind of appreciate that. And it wasn't with Hover, of course. MacBreak.hover.com. If you do have a lot of domains to transfer, they have a flat fee, a transfer pricing. I think it's $25. I wish I'd done it for up to thousands of sites if you want. They'll do it all for you. MacBreak.hover.com. We thank them so much for their support. And don't forget to use the MacBreak coupon code because I think you get 10%. Yes, you get 10% off your domain registration. Offer code MacBreak. Do you know what number 2 is yet?
I think I might have had a stroke, Leo. I don't remember ever saying that.
You don't even
I'm
remember
very
saying that?
I'd love a side-by-side comparison of something tablet. That sounds... No, that sounds cool. People love these tablet stuff.
Well, I think my initial opinion before I saw any of these non-Apple tablets was it's going to be just like it was with the iPhone, where it's going to take a couple of years for people to figure out what that secret sauce is. But what's different is Android is fairly mature. This Samsung Galaxy Tab comes with 2.2. It is 7 inches. Beautiful screen. I know you'd agree with me on that, Andy.
Very, very lovely screen. Yes.
It's not Samsung's Super AMOLED, but it's a very good LCD screen.
Yes.
And I remember I'm an Android fan. I use a Droid X as my primary phone long ago, having given up on the iPhone as a phone. But Andy, I know you're an iPhone fan and not an Android fan. What do you think of the Galaxy Tab?
I like it a lot. My real review is not going to hit until next week, but it has a couple of different features that no other Android tab that we've seen before this has. Number one, if you put an Apple logo on this, you would not really question that this was an Apple product.
It's beautifully made.
The build quality is superb. They probably tried. They wouldn't make it out of plastic, and they'd probably make it a little bit flatter. But it looks very, very, very solidly made. It looks like a very, very nicely done thing. The processor is fast enough. The screen is very nice. It's very, very weird taking a picture like this. But
it's got a front-facing and rear-facing camera, but a disappointingly 3.2 megapixel rear-facing camera.
Well, I mean, if you're using this for real photography, you're kind of missing the boat.
Well, they could have put a better camera on the damn thing.
They could have, but what's the point? The real thing that I'm getting into is that I like it a lot, but, and this is going to sound like a really, really snarky comment, but it's not meant to be snarky. It cuts through most of the complaints that I have about the Android user interface. If this is not a tablet interface, there's almost no modifications made to take advantage of the larger screen real estate. But the simple fact that there is more room for the basic user interface makes that interface work better.
I agree.
Typically, like the Android user interface looks like you filled a burrito with user interface elements and then ate it on top of the tablet. Because that's exactly what it looks like.
I'm not
looks
sure
like
I'd agree with that.
It looks like
okay.
It's just like you just got randomly dumped things all over the place that makes no sense. When you put it on a tiny, tiny little phone, it really doesn't work exceptionally well. I'm always just saying, okay, which of these 9 buttons grouped incredibly closely together do the thing that I want to do, keeping in mind that 3 of them are some sort of a circle with an arrow on it. But when you really stretch it out like this, it really does become a much, much more compelling product. Also, I've been carrying it around for the past 3 or 4 days, and I love my iPad, but the iPad is still something that I have to make sort of a conscious decision to take with me.
Andy has momentarily moved off microphone.
I'm off mic. I mean,
and now he's back.
Take a look at I mean, just take a look at this, and that's when you see the difference in portability between these 2 machines. I mean, you can really fit 2 of these onto one of those.
Well, that's exactly what Steve Jobs was saying. 7 inches sounds like it's close to 10, but it's really only half the real estate.
Right, and that's actually the advantage. But the difference between that is that it's still people initially complained that the iPad was just a really, really big phone, and of course you use this for exactly 4 hours, and you realize that no, this is nothing like just a big phone. This really is kind of just a really big phone. It has a big keyboard, and it makes it easy to hunt and peck with one finger and type on it. It really is not something you can type on. Holding it horizontally, I find it really difficult I can't really stretch my thumbs enough.
I kind of liked it, though, that in vertical orientation, you can, in fact, I don't have the camera on, you can, in fact, type with your thumbs.
Yeah, I mean, the vertical one works great. Also, it has swipe, which I absolutely love.
The best keyboard for Android. The battery's dead on this, but you can see it's funny. You can actually use this with one hand. I don't mind the 7 inches. And by the way, a number of people complained, the Android apps don't scale well. Angry Birds scales great. Everything.
What do you use it for, Leo?
Well, I don't really use it for anything, but this is the one frustration. It should be a phone too, and then it might be a great replacement for an iPhone and an iPad together. You know what I'm saying?
I think that the success of this is going to be in just accepting that it's a totally different thing. If you're putting this against an iPad wins every single time. If you put it against a Kindle, if you put it against an iPhone, and you simply say that this is not designed to do everything an iPad can do, it's designed to be something you can, sacrifices that you're willing to make in order to get something that you can toss in a jacket pocket. I mean, I would not, as I said, many times before, if I'm traveling for 2 or 3 days, I can travel with my iPad as my only computer. With this, I would have to be making a conscious decision that I'm not going to be doing very much in terms of pushing electrons around if I were to rely on this as my only computer.
Right.
But that said, I do like it a lot. Again,
I'm surprised. I did not expect it.
It's probably my favorite Android device I've seen so far. I like it a lot.
I find it so hard to even participate in this conversation because, well, obviously because I don't know the first thing about these particular computers, but really more, for me, it comes so much down to like extremely specific uses. It would be like asking me if I like paper. You know, I like paper. Like, to make what? Well, to make a drinking glass. Well, no, that's not really good. It's really good for writing on or whatever. For me, like, I still struggle a little bit with like what the iPad is for. That said, I do love it. I do love it. But today, for example, this morning, I was debating. Doesn't matter why, but I've got to be out and about some today. And I need to do some writing. And I was debating, do I want to take my MacBook, what is it, whatever the 13-inch, like whatever the small MacBook is, versus do I want to take my iPad? And this is a little bit of a straw man because this is my use case. Do I want to bring my iPad, my aluminum keyboard, and my Mophie giant-ass power thing as a backup just in case? I use it for my phone and my wireless mostly. And, you know, they weighed almost the same. And it's I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think I'm the only person in the world who struggles with that. To quote, I forget who I'm quoting here. It might be Andy, I forget, but somebody said that in the last week or so, said, hey, you know, Marco probably said this. My iPhone is really still the go-to portable device. I never have to think twice about the iPhone. And in my case, honestly, I can type pretty freaking fast on an iPhone. I can type okay on the iPad even as I try, but if I really want to write, if I want to get more than 40 words per minute, I've got to use a keyboard. So for me, that's why I asked Leo. I wasn't trying to be like that guy. But it's like, to me, it all depends on what you want to use it for. If you want to use it for calendaring, for light email, it's just, you know, I think there's an elephant in the room with every single device, which is what are you going to use it for?
I could see using this for everything that I would use an iPad for with the obvious exception, which is that it doesn't have the same apps. So,
yeah, I think that for me, the apps are important. I think that it's I like the form. I do like the 16:9 form factor a little bit better than the iPad.
Yeah. So to answer one question, Merlin, it's great. It's a great media player. It's actually a better media player than the iPad.
Yeah, and I
really
think
it looks because of the widescreen.
Yeah.
And I think it's easier to fit in
I love watching Netflix on my iPad. I watched The Pianist the other night, which is a pretty long movie. Pianist, and I watched actually I watched The Pianist too. It's been in my queue for a while, but I watched The Pianist and I'm like, oh my god, like I laid on the couch and watched The Pianist. Great movie. And it was amazing because what you guys said and I kind of laughed at back in the day, I did kind of forget that it was there. If you find a comfortable position, but I forget that my penis is there. But
I'm sorry, you just keep. I'm sorry. See, no one even has to make jokes. It's just that it works so well. I feel as though I'm looking at a beautiful sunset. all I have to do is be quiet and enjoy it.
You just have to be there to enjoy it. Yeah. But anyway, but
sometimes I had to shake it once or twice to have it come back to life, but still.
It goes to sleep. It does go to sleep occasionally. But
there's something I love, which is
if you touch it, it comes back awake.
Yeah,
we have a show title.
I love when I'm typing something for Twitter on my iPhone and I'm spending half an hour trying to write 140 characters I think are funny. And then I go to undo and I stand there and I'm at the corner of Taraval and 19th Avenue in San Francisco going like this with my hand. And I think, that's perfect because that's exactly what I'm doing. It's exactly. But anyway,
this is better for tweeting. This is, in fact, Android has a really great application called Twidroid that uses the landscape mode very well.
I find that with most of the Android ones that I've worked with so far, and the one that I was just playing with, which one was that?
This is the Archos 7-inch.
The Archos.
Yeah.
You know, I do find that I always find that the fit and finish of the interface is not quite. I mean, like the pinching and the stuff like that is not quite as smooth as you get with the iPad. You know, like it's not quite as. You know, it doesn't feel quite as fluid.
You keep noticing.
I keep on noticing that it's like, oh, it's not quite the.
I think some of that is
Android is
what you're
like
used
that
to.
B+ student that you know could be the A student if he really applied himself, but he just can't be motivated.
I couldn't disagree more. But anyway, as I'm well known for disagreeing with you. I think the Android is far superior, and in fact, some of that lag is part of the problem with multitasking. I know you don't like it, Andy. I think part of the problem is with multitasking. This is a flaw in Android because it is an open platform. People write bad apps, and sometimes you get apps on here that really do cause it to be less responsive.
Right.
Okay, can I underscore what you're saying, Leo, in an incredibly cryptic way? Something that we mentioned earlier that none of us are going to mention. Something that supposedly might come out Friday. You know, apparently one of the last things they do when they're putting out an iOS or whatever is the performance tuning. I guess it makes sense for that to be the last thing you do. You know, you're not gonna run the vacuum until you've dusted, right? It doesn't make sense. And boy, can I just say I have noticed stuff with lagging on the iPhone with this beta that I never would have noticed otherwise.
Multitasking is not a good idea on these small devices, I think.
Well, you know what it is? It's such an interesting engineering constraint because you really are set upon on all sides. And I think Apple is the one who has, whatever metaphor you want to use, raised the bar for this. Is the iPhone, I mean, I think the iPhone is something people are probably going to remember years from now in the way people remember like a Technics 1200 turntable or something. They're just going to go, yeah, that's, you know, or like a Braun product or, you know, Dieter Rams kind of thing. You're going to look at this and go, this was really, they got most of the parts of this really, really, really good. And now the challenge is, like you say, with the problem is that 7-inch screen thing. I don't know the first thing about that tablet, any of these tablets, but it kind of feels like it's neither fish nor fowl. Like when I keep annoyingly asking you what you use it for, like specifically, like for me, there's stuff, I love the iPad. I think it's brilliant, but there's some stuff I would never in a million years try to do on the iPad, as I think everybody should not try to do. And I just wonder, where do you think it excels at this tablet in general, and specifically excels on the kind of light, the tweeting stuff, social networking, email and calendaring, that kind of stuff? What would you not do on the 7-inch, if I could ask?
I think that
you might do
anything
on an
that
iPad. That you might do on an
requires a lot of
iPad.
I'm sorry, I interrupted.
Go ahead.
No, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh, well, my interaction with the 7-inch tablet is a larger, more comfortable version of the sort of apps that I would have in my pocket. There is definitely a difference between having a big 10-inch screen like you have on the iPad, a big keyboard that you can actually touch type on and actually type 40 to 50 words per minute on.
That's the big one on the keyboard, yeah.
Yeah, and having just more real estate, more luxury, so to speak, in the user interface, and just having that larger screen.
I have to admit, I'd be quite happy with the 7-inch.
I don't notice it that much.
Be more portable.
I'll give you an example. I've played Angry Birds on all 3 sizes.
The Angry Birds test. This is the key test to understand whether these devices are really going to work.
It looks great for gaming. It's a perfect size for gaming, right?
It is. It's plenty of space for that. I think the keyboard is the biggest difference. You wouldn't want to do word processing for any length of time on.
But I wouldn't want to do that.
But I don't do it on the iPad either. Yeah. But I could see people saying that works, and it's true. Those keys at least are big enough that you
I actually find them to be too big. Like on the iPad.
That's exactly right.
They're like too far apart.
I think Andy said this in one of his 60 gajillion word wonderful iPad posts from the week. He posted 50 million words about the iPad. So good. I run into this thing because I'm lazy. I like to be seated and maybe even recline a little bit. So I'll go and I'll sit somewhere with my back against a wall, put that thing in my lap, and I have still not found a position where I can type without.
Let me show you though something interesting that Archos is doing.
But on a table, yes.
Let me show you something interesting that Archos is doing though. They do have the 7-inch, and I'm not sure what the price is on this, but I'm sure it will be less than the Samsung Galaxy S. And the big difference will be it won't be tied to a carrier, which is a big problem with the Galaxy S because you have to buy it. Well, I guess you can. You can buy it for $600 without a carrier. I don't know then what you would do with it. But they also offer. This is the same size as a Droid X. This is a 4-inch. And then this is the one I found the most intriguing. This is about the size of an iPod Touch. It's running an ARM processor. Unfortunately, the batteries died on all these because I left them here. No, maybe not. I left them here for 3 days, and I didn't charge them, and I should have. But it is a resistive screen that I found to be very usable, $99.
Wow.
So that's, I wish I could, yeah, I think the batteries died on it. It really is a interesting product. Now, Archos I've kind of written off because in the past their operating system's been kind of clunky. But if they start really focusing on Android, I think these devices are going to be very interesting. It's a good, this is, as a $99 product, this is an interesting product to compete with a iPod Touch, for instance.
That's absolutely true. The only worry that you have with Android is realize that if Google comes out with 2.2, 3.0, 3.2, you still have to rely on Archos or that specific manufacturer coming up with a build of Google, of Android that's going to be compatible with it. Otherwise, I like Archos' stuff. I was pretty surprised though that they're still shipping a lot of devices with Android 1.6, even when 2.0 was pretty much in the bag and appearing on just about every phone.
Yeah, this is. I'm now seeing this is not 2.2. The other two, the 4 and the 7, are 2.2. That's an interesting question. I don't know how they're going to.
I do love the fact that Android has, that Google has put together a really good mobile operating system for free that that other companies, hardware and software manufacturers, can then take and improve on their own. I think that the right mindset is that that Android is to these devices the way that Unix is to Mac OS X. It's just the starting point that they use to build their own operating system, their own interface, and their own product.
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought of you yesterday, Leo. I was downtown, and long story short, I needed a micro USB to USB cable. This is a fascinating story. So I stuck my head and just jumped into actually a T-Mobile store, and there was a dude in there with an iPhone. And long story short, the guy's got an unlocked iPhone, and the guy was like, "Oh, if you use this, you can only have Edge." And I couldn't help myself. I said to the guy, like, "Wow, what are you going to use?" And he popped out his Android phone, and I'm like, "Oh, so you tether."
Yeah.
You tether to the Android
using Wi-Fi.
How cheap? What's the basic plan you could get?
20
to have tethering.
20.
And what's the data plan like?
But you still have to have the other data plan. Yeah. My Droid X does tethering. It's $20 additional. I think $30 for the data plan, so it's $50 total. Plus you've got the phone. It's fairly affordable.
So the MiFi ends up being not such a bad deal, huh?
Well, if you just want tethering.
It depends on how much data you use too, because if you go over the MiFi, you just get pounded on the data. You get
really.
I have a $600 bill to prove that.
Really, wow.
So you get it's like $50 a gig after that, and it's much less on the iPhone tethering. So it's actually.
I need to get into ASCII.
By the way, this 7-inch Android based Archos 7, 8 gigabytes. Take a guess price on Amazon.
$249.
$187.
There you go.
Now that's Wi-Fi, no 3G, but again, then you use tethering with something else, and you've got something.
And you can get the Kindle app on it. So
there it is.
It's an alternative. It's sort of a colored touchscreen alternative to the $180. Actually, to the $139.
And that's
a workable price. That's a workable price. It's
$187.
Yeah.
This is, by the way, capacitance. This is not resistive.
It feels a little bit like the early 90s when, you remember, like, if you wanted to have, even before the Palm, if you wanted to have, what did they call it? Like, there's that episode of Seinfeld, remember, where the guy's got the little pocket. If you wanted a little carry-around thing.
European carry-all, yeah.
No. But if you wanted to have, like, a thing with your addresses and stuff in it, for a while it was super costly. It was almost like calculators.
Right.
And then suddenly it just, like, bam. It was like $9 if you wanted one of those, I wonder if something similar is happening here.
These are very compelling gaming devices at 7 inches. I'd be a little nervous if I were Nintendo DS or even a PlayStation. Well, I guess.
Are you drunk right now, Leo? You seem like you got some problems with your drive.
I'm doing this like Ginger Rogers, backwards and upside down, but
and
in high heels.
In high heels. Well, I wasn't going to mention that, but this is for $187, folks, and it runs Android software. This is 2.2, I believe. So,
well, I think also if you're building custom stuff, one of the problems again is that it's much easier to develop the custom stuff that you might want to do.
I had my
hardware interface and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So I want to build. One of the things that, like, the holy grail for me is a good, like, something that'll control my Canon camera and that I can plug into. But dealing with the hardware issues about hardware interfacing,
it's Android 2.1 actually
is just painful.
Yeah.
with the iPhone or the iPad. But this would be something that would be easier to develop for.
I wouldn't be surprised if Archos made these available. Let me see if I can update this. This is an interesting
But
question.
you're saying, if I hear what you're saying, Alex, you're saying like in vertical markets. Like if you wanted to go develop a dongle or a piece of hardware.
Precisely,
Okay.
yeah.
Because I think that there's a huge market for the iPad and the iPhone of being controllers for the rest of our life. You know, like controllers for our oven and our microwave and our TV and everything else, where we just have an interface to everything that runs through. Like
Boxy, Google TV, all use and have Android apps for remote controls. It's kind of an interesting.
Well, yeah, and I want to, like, when I go into my my CRV has a really bad GPS that it's fine to have it in there, but I would much prefer to just be able to pop my iPad in there and just have it run the car.
I agree.
I mean, run all the media stuff for the car, and so. The idea of that is really interesting, except for the fact that dealing with the hardware requirements and all the stuff that has to happen with Apple to do that really takes a lot of the fun out of it. Can I ask a dumb guy question?
Yeah.
As like all my questions. So the perception with a lot of people is that one reason that Windows, it's hard to innovate with Windows. One reason Windows... it's just tough to work with is there's that number of people throw around about, what is it, like 27 kinds of devices or whatever it is, that people say, well, there's such an installed base issue with Windows of having to support all this stuff, legacy versions of this stuff. Is that a risk at all for Android? I ask this.
Well, that's exactly what's going on with Android. You have all these different screen
I think it's
sizes.
actually worse with Android. I mean, it's becoming worse because everyone's really running with it.
Though.
It's its advantage, but I think that you get to a point where there's a lot of confusion. Someone just can't quite figure out what apps work.
From a developer, I don't know if it's that confusing. I think developers are able to develop for this and get pretty good. Get on most. And this is what Eric Schmidt was asked, by the way, at Web 2.0. And he said, no, we feel like you could develop for one version that will play on all of them. That's where I was really blown away, in fact, by these 7-inch displays, because I was told, oh no, stuff's not going to scale well. And for the most part, it scales very well and surprisingly well. So.
There was a great article a couple of years ago from one of the, I want to say, designers that worked on the redesign of Wells Fargo's software for their ATMs. And this is really mostly metaphorical in this instance, but you say to somebody, okay, well, you know how it is in design, right? Oh, it's all easy. It's all just bits and bytes. We're going to hire you, go out, redesign. Well, what they discovered in their kind of discovery and requirements process was that there's actually an astounding number of differences. If you think about every kind of ATM you go to, right? There's some where there's hardware buttons. There's some where there's software buttons. Right. And it was out of scope to replace the hardware. But they were expected to present a unified interface that would work on all of these things. So I thought it was it made me really think about this kind of issue because they had to be really innovative. And again, it's all got to be the same code base, right? You can't just have a million different unmaintainable versions. And I wonder at what point, what do you do? Do you fork it? Do you have two versions? Do you have like a whatever CE or whatever? I mean, what do you do to keep that sustainable over time?
Well, the problem with Android is you've got the this is a trick play. He fooled you. He walked through the line. They were
on bootleg.
Yeah, it was cute.
He has a suspicious hump, that lineman.
He walked through the line.
Perhaps you should run after him.
Yeah, that was actually very funny. I'm sorry, I didn't mean that.
Try turning that upside down. Try turning that upside down.
Marty Feldman's running.
That's something I noticed when I had it. It doesn't.
And
well, that's YouTube. It might be the YouTube app. I don't know.
It's whatever it starts with.
Yes, you did a little Benny Hill moment. A little Benny Hill moment.
I'll be that Apple guy for just half a second and just say I think the stupid stuff like that nobody cares about, like the fact that the screen turns around, that integration, for suckers like me,
but it does turn around. It just I don't know why it didn't in that particular case.
I'm not trying to be petty. I'm just saying that for me, that fit and finish stuff is why I pay all this crappy dumb money to Apple is, and again, like my G1.
Tell me that this is not responsive. I really don't understand why people say this. I don't.
But I'm thinking, for example, my G1. Maybe this is a bad example. When I got that G1, the second software upgrade, I think, I can't remember specifically, but basically it just wouldn't work on the phone. So the phone became like an interesting.
Yeah, well, the G1, I agree. Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, I guess I'm just bringing it up because it's interesting to me that
$187 versus a $500 iPad. That's a $300. That's a $300. No, I know. I'm not talking to you particularly, Merlin. I'm just saying that's a $300 differential. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think this, has a Kindle app on it. It has, No,
I think you have a good point there. There's the price really is such an important component of the feature of any device. There's so many times I'm looking at something and I'm like, when I reviewed the first MacBook Air, I thought that this would be an exceptionally good $1,000 computer for an $1,800 computer. No way. And so that's often what I think about when I see a lot of these lesser Android devices, where if you're trying to get $500 out of me for this, no, but for $189, sure, I'm willing to do. I mean, I think that side by side, you could demonstrate that there are a lot of things in which it's not quite as polished as an iPad, but the answer to the next question is $300 less. No matter what the next question is, the answer is $300 less.
The reality is, I'm not going to. I cook a lot with Epicurious on my iPad.
This would be perfect for that.
And so I that would not be a sole use for my iPad in my kitchen at $500 or $800, but at $187 and a little something that would attach to something that I could roll down. I do it often enough that it would be worth, to me, it'd be worth actually getting one just for the kitchen, just for watching videos while I'm doing stuff and so on and so forth.
They're saying that this is not the same model, so I may be wrong on the price. I don't understand. This is the 7. Am I doing something wrong?
It looks like
the same. Maybe I'm doing something wrong. It's the Archos 7 IS.
Maybe you went the Archos 7 Enterprise.
Oh, maybe this
Pro
is the
Studio
Internet.
CS.
Is this different? Well, maybe with more memory. They do make this. I don't know. This looks like the one. I'm sorry, but I don't know. If there's a difference, I apologize if I got the price right.
Did you guys ever see Marco's post from Marco had a really good post. Marco.org had a good post a few months ago that, I don't know.
They're not selling it on Amazon. Okay.
It basically was saying like, well, here's what phones look like before the iPhone came out. And truly, he was like, oh, there's a Trio, here's a da-da-da-da. And then like a few months after the iPhone came out, here's what phones look like. And like every single one of them look like an iPhone. Okay, now tablets. Apple can't make a tablet, blah, 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 blah. And and here's what tablets look like before then. And it's just such a great post because it's almost like the way the Daily Show, so much TV news acts like we can't find video of how somebody's lying. And Marco just takes out actual photos of popular devices. And it's astounding how much
they make a 10 as well. And
it's $279.
The list is $279. So the list on Amazon is $200. So $70 more. I mean, I think it's still probably. And by the way, you can get it loaded with up to 250 gigs of memory if you'd like.
Who should buy the 7-inch Archos rather than a low-end iPad?
Somebody who can live with Android, I think, would be step one. I mean, that's the biggest difference.
Use case. What would you see that being better for? Somebody who wants the portability, obviously, right?
You know what I really liked about the Samsung, and I would guess it's the same in the Archos, but maybe not because the Samsung has such a good screen. This is Kindle-sized. Yeah. So anybody who says, oh, the iPad's too big to read, I want something Kindle-sized, this is Kindle-sized and a very good book reading, I think, experience.
That's what I was going to say. I think if I have to come up with one sentence to describe why someone would want to buy the 7-inch tablet, it would be if you want a phone that's also a really good book reader, because a lot of people will never be able to connect to the smaller screen when reading books. I do still think that the iPad is the best book reader you can get, but in terms of comfort of reading, but you really want that larger screen.
And I still think that Android is more geared towards the geek than the iPhone is or the iPad. I mean, I think that if my parents asked what should I get, I still would not necessarily recommend an Android device. I just because I'm afraid they get lost.
I disagree with you guys, but that's just me. Yeah. I'll just be the lone dissenter. I know it's an Apple show, and I'm going to get a lot of hate mail from people saying you shouldn't be on an Apple show if you prefer Android.
No, I don't think we're. I don't know
because I want to actually. I'm actually looking at getting it. I mean, for me, I actually want to get an Archos 70 to do a bunch of. There's a bunch of things that I want. So I'm not saying that I don't like it. I'm just saying that when I think about my kids and my parents.
If you're not a geek, you should get a Windows phone. There you go. Talk about throwing a hand grenade.
They've racked up a lot of really big wins over the past couple of weeks. Now, if there was a list of 10 apps that you would commercial apps off of the iPad or off of the iPhone or off an Android device you would want to have in any phone, they've got now about 4 or 5 of them. They have the Kindle app. They've got. They've got eBay
not Audition, not Audible yet, but soon I hope. The eBay app's spectacular.
I'm sure it's coming. Whoever it is who's essentially keeping the developer community staffed with beer and hookers, he's definitely working that expense account, because it seems like every 4 days I'll get another press release from another company that said that, okay, we're bringing our our industry standard Netflix app, our industry standard Hulu app, our industry standard blah blah blah, to Windows Mobile Phone Personal 7 phone system 7 phone platform.
And that is, by the way, the one
These
of the
days I will learn what they're actually.
one of
calling
the
it.
issues. Windows Phone 7. I know it's ridiculous.
Windows
that is
7
one of the issues. Netflix will not go on Android because they say it's not secure, but they're glad to go on iPhone and Windows phones.
Yes.
There should be a name for this phenomenon. There probably is somewhere, but there's a phenomenon I think everybody's familiar with where you go, okay, everybody, be honest, be super honest. First time you open up a new search engine, what's that cool new one with the slash tags? Grockle or Suckle or Bickle or whatever. You open up a new search engine, what's the first thing you search for?
Your name, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And you're going to immediately, this is such a lizard brain thing, but be honest, right? Your first reaction is going to be how well you like the results for your name. Yeah. You go to a new music service like RDIO radio or whatever. I subscribed for a few months. It just wasn't my style, but I think it's definitely Alex's style. Have you played with radio, Alex?
I have not.
RDO.
Oh, God. You need to be on it.
Yeah.
You need to be on it. It's
cool.
a beautiful service.
I picked it, but they all mocked me when I picked it. So that's okay, you know.
But you go in, and I did a search on, not the Long Winters, but one of my favorite bands, maybe Sloan. I did a quick search, and they weren't on there. So despite the gajillions of stuff, I went on to the, I shouldn't say
what
this.
Do you search for Sloan? Is that your...
I search for Oliver Dakudzi. Like that's like literally. I go to a music thing. No, yeah, he's actually on a lot of things. He's because he's part.
I know that.
Oliver Dakudzi, though, I always go Oliver. It's M Dakudzi.
He plays.
No. He's African. It's a band out of Zimbabwe. Fantastic. And if anyone's listening, Tuku Music, that's the one you want. But if I can find Tuku Music, then it's gonna we're okay.
If you go, to just underscore your point, if you go to that store and you go Angry Birds or whatever your obsession is, you're going to go, I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a weirdly disproportionate advantage that it gives when the app that you look for does come up.
Well, and that's the whole thing about that's the whole issue of 300,000 apps, or it's the whole issue of going to a record store that has more than just the top 40. You know, even though the top 40 is 90% of what they sell, if you walk in and can't find it, you make a decision that you can't buy anything there again. You know, this poor little camera shop that's down the street from us here, you know, I go in and 80% of the time they don't have what I need. And so most of the time I don't even consider them anymore. I just order stuff on Amazon.
Great for filters, but you're not going to buy a lens there.
Can I tell you one type of tablet you are not going to buy is a Windows-based tablet. HP made 5,000 HP slates, and demand was twice what they thought. They sold 9,000 of them.
More in the crunch pad.
Yes, that's true. Ow. Now, considering Apple sells 46,555 iPads a day, it's not probably anything to jump up and down about. But I do think I'll be curious to see what the sales
what's the
figures
price point of the HP?
Oh, I don't know. I'd be curious to see what the figures are for Android.
I still think currently anything over $400 starts to become no man's land.
I think it was over that.
Yeah, once you go over 400, I think that all the stuff living in the 250 to 300,
$800.
Yeah, once you go into that, now you're going head to head, and I think that's a real.
It wasn't the 7-inch screen. It might have been the price. It might have been Windows. I think you have to have an OS designed for touch, and I think that's why Android can at least compete.
You got to knock it out of the park over $400, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I mean, you know, it's just
you're competing against computers. Is your point?
Yeah.
Well,
also, computers and the iPad.
Hey, will Steve Jobs be the man of the year? Marissa Mayer of Google says he should be.
Wow.
Time Magazine's Man of the Year online voting has begun, and currently the premier of Turkey is way ahead. Apparently there's a big Turkish internet contingent. But Steve Jobs is in the round.
No, it's not that again.
Yeah, it's, maybe 4chan decided to vote. I don't know. Let me see. I'll just get the latest. Time.com has, by the way, this doesn't mean that this is who it'll be because Time's editors choose the person of the year.
This is just a suggestion.
This is just a serving suggestion. And I
this is just a bald attempt to get traffic.
Okay, let's face it, it's true. And they've certainly got the Turkish vote. Now I can't even...
You want to get that, you really want to get deep, deep, deep into that Turkish vertical. You don't want to leave that to Amazon.
Time Magazine.
And Thanksgiving's right around the corner, so...
Do we agree? I mean, I think Jobs certainly had a good year.
He did. I mean, the iPad isn't statistically, didn't they say it's
the fastest selling
electronic device ever?
Yeah.
So
really?
It's not bad.
Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow.
Last year, the person of the year, who was? Do we even remember?
No.
No.
It's the F. Murray Abraham syndrome.
He won an
You win
Oscar.
it, and then you never hear from him again for the next 3 or 4 years.
Look at Vincent Chiavelli.
Oh,
Yeah, I was about to say. Exactly. Good point.
Can I not look at him?
I love that guy.
Funny looking. He's the Marty Feldman of drama.
Milos Forman puts him in every movie, right? He's in every Milos Forman movie.
Right.
Last year, I think it was Ben Bernanke.
Well, I have a list now of every Time Magazine Man of the Year, and Ben Bernanke. You're right. That's
nice ball.
We can now call it the F. Murray Bernanke syndrome.
There you have it.
Barack Obama before that, Vladimir Putin. In 2006, remember, it was you.
It's me. It's me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bill, Melinda Gates, and Bono in 2005, George W. Bush, 2004, the American Soldier in 2003. Some are saying the votes are coming in for the unemployed American for this year.
Oh, gosh. I sure do like populism, don't y'all?
I appreciate that, but doesn't it feel like a cheat when they said the winner, the greatest man in the world is
You.
love? Love isn't a person.
Love? What are you talking about, love?
Everyone's narcissistic but you.
1938, it was Adolf Hitler, just to put this all in perspective.
It should be. Well, that's the thing. That's what people lose track of, is that it used to mean something. It used to mean the person that had the biggest impact on the world.
Right.
And you know what? The biggest person having impact on the world was not you.
Right.
I'm sorry.
No, it wasn't. 1939, it was Stalin. In 1940, it was Churchill, then Roosevelt, then Stalin again. In 1940,
Two-timer. He's
two-timer.
going all Harrison.
One of the few two-timers. Elizabeth II won in 1952. She's been around a while. Jimmy Carter in 76, Anwar Sadat in 77. Why am I wasting your time with this? Let's move on. In fact,
I think that's interesting, and that's why I'm bad to have on the show. I think that's very interesting.
You know who it was in 2002? The Whistleblowers.
Wow.
Is that the guys who opened for the Proclaimers?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes.
Well, I could walk 500.
No, the whistleblowers are the ones that stopped them from
It isn't a
500.
MacBreak Weekly unless we've sung I Could Walk 500 Miles. And now we have. I think it's time for a break. When we return, your picks of the week, gentlemen. But first, I have to tell you, and I would love to tell you about Gazelle. We all have old stuff lying around. The household gadgets, old things that we no longer need. Gazelle is what you do when you got that stuff. You call up. Actually, you don't even have to call them. You can go to the Gazelle site. That's what I do. Go to gazelle.com. Enter in what your gadgets are. Get a box. Throw them all in the box. Gazelle will send you a mailing label. They pay for postage. And then they send you a check. It couldn't be easier. I get tweeted recently. I just got tweeted from somebody who said, I love Gazelle. I filled it out, told them what my iPhone was, and they sent me more money. Because they said, you know what, it's in better condition than you said it was.
Wow.
If you enter in your device here at Gazelle, GAZELLE.com. I like to do the iPhone because everybody's got an old 3GS lying around, right? You just would love to get a 4. And maybe you've put iOS 4.0 on your 3GS, and now you can't wait to get rid of it. So you click the item, and you say, does it make a call? Yes. Is it free of water damage? Yes. It's in, let's say, good condition. Maybe I scratched it up a little bit. I do have the original cables and AC adapter. You can see the price has been tumbling on this is a 3G, an 8-gigabyte 3G. How much is that worth? $71. Hey, that's something you'd get that you wouldn't get otherwise. Occasionally, about 10% of the things Gazelle gets, you can't sell because they're just too crappy. They have great recycling, too. It's a great way to recycle your electronics. They use EPA-certified recyclers. They guarantee no landfill. So this is a really, they don't send it to China. Proper recycling. GAZELLE.com. Fill it out, get all your stuff, and then at the very end when you're checking out, enter the offer code MacBreak, and they'll give you a bonus 5%. 20 product categories, 200,000 unique items. Great for charities, too. You can have a Gazelle gadget drive. GAZELLE. Don't sell it. Gazelle it. We're big fans here. We use Gazelle a lot. Merlin, you haven't been here in a long time. Well, a couple of weeks anyway. Do you have a pick? I'll let you start today.
Well, in my ongoing drive to become relevant, I'm just going to mention something I like a lot with the disclosure that My friend Adam did the promotional video for these guys, and I got this free. But Jawbone,
Sandwich?
Lonely Sandwich, that's right. Jawbone, the people who make the Bluetooth things, just put out something called the Jam Box, and they sent me one for free that I love. And I just want to say it's worth checking out. It's really cool. Jambox. First of all, if you haven't seen Adam's video for this, it's just worth watching the video because it's
Is
insane.
Adam this guy? Did he?
No, that guy's actually he's a performer, and I really want this guy's head more than anything in the world. This guy he's got a kind of Cosby Kid's head that I really envy.
So the Jambox is a little red plastic brick.
The Jambox is well. To describe it to folks who can't see the video, it's larger than a candy bar, but it's basically a rubberized little box with cool speakers in it, and it's
It's a
Bluetooth
speaker.
But it also does speakerphone, and it works with multiple Bluetooth devices. Your phone can ring. It does caller ID. Essentially, if you just imagine Bluetooth speakers, I think done right. I like it a lot. It's got a micro USB in that lets you interact with their website to add new voices and
So
apps.
how's the sound on it?
Well, I'm not an audiophile. I stood in front of an orange amp for 5 years, so I'm mostly deaf. I think it sounds freaking great. I like it a lot. It's super portable.
You could use it for conference calling.
It's a couple $100. It's not cheap, but I liked it a lot, and I'm loving it.
I'm
using
ordering
it.
one right now.
It's got a line out, or excuse me, a line in. So if you, so you can just leave it plugged in through the micro USB if you just want to use it as a thing. But it's got pretty good battery life. I have a pretty English lady voice on there that tells me when the battery's running low. Anyway, that's my pseudo Mac-esque thing. It's the Jambox. I keep wanting to call it Jawbox, which is an awesome band, but it's actually the Jawbone Jambox. And if you Google that, you can check out Adam's video. It's a great demo of it. I like it a lot. My suggestion, though, at the risk of opening a rat hole, is something related to the Beatles, with whom I am obsessed. And this is available for streaming on Netflix. I don't know. I haven't seen it too many other places. Gosh, the reviews on this are not good on Netflix. But I love this. It's a film, 2-hour movie documentary called "Composing the Beatles Songbook," and I consider myself I'm not like a Beatles super fan, but I know a fair amount about the Beatles, and I learned so much in this documentary I didn't know. It is, I have to admit, agree with the reviewers. Like me, it's a little Paul-centric. I'm a guy who thinks Paul didn't get his due. I don't think Paul got his due. I think a lot of people don't realize what Paul's contribution to the music and the band writ large was, and all the times he kind of papered over for John when he was being John. But it's a fantastic insight into how they worked together through from the beginning through when they stopped working together as much. I thought it was a tremendous film. I learned the one fact I'll share with you I did not know. I used to be part of the great unwashed that thought every time the Beatles did something interesting, it was John's idea. Every time the Beatles did something avant-garde, it was John. And that's just apparently simply not true. That there was a time where basically Paul was living with Jane Asher and was the cosmopolitan, go-to-parties guy, hang out and watch new wave films guy, listen to music concrete and stuff, while John was sitting around in the suburbs with Cynthia, being sad. And so really stuff like Tomorrow Never Knows, I Am the Walrus, a lot of that stuff and even like Revolution Number 9 to an extent, has a huge influence of Paul that most people are not aware of. If you're interested at all in the Beatles, if you're interested in songwriting, and if you're interested in the way people collaborate and don't, and the shelf life that really any collaboration has, I thought it was a terrific film. They talked to a lot of insiders, talked a lot to Klaus Vormann, the guy who did the cover of Revolver, the guy who played bass in the Plastic Ono Band. Anyway, Composing the Beatles Songbook, available for streaming on Netflix, presumably elsewhere. My recommendation.
By the way, when you do it in the instant play, there's a little advantage. You get some other recommendations, including a John Lennon Plastic Ono Band, Imagine John Lennon, John and Yoko's Year of Peace, and Joni Mitchell, Woman of Heart and Mind, all of which I've now added to my instant play.
My queue is ridiculous on the TiVo. Because you know what? Can I just say one thing, Leo? It still drives me crazy about bookmarks on every browser. Why in bookmarks is the latest thing that you bookmark at the bottom? That is completely insane to me. And the same with Netflix. When on the TiVo, I have to go bloop, 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 because I got to get past Kipper and Thomas and Dora and Caillou to get down to the Beatles.
Hey, yeah, I never get past Caillou. I just there's like an
oh my
internal.
God, Caillou is a plague in my house.
Is it French?
No, he's Canadian. He's Canadian.
Oh.
And it's cute, but it's no dinosaur train. Moving on.
Two good recommendations from Merlin Mann. I'm going to give Andy Ihnatko the next position.
Well, I'm likewise going to recommend something that's Mac related because you can visit this site in a Mac browser and listen to it on Mac devices. This is, of course, Beatles were on everybody's mind yesterday, so I started looking around. I came across this great site called The Beatles Complete on Ukulele.com. This is
your kind of record.
It's even better than that. It is a project.
Tablature?
Let me read the mission statement on the site. It's the Beatles Complete on Ukulele.com. At www.thebeatlescompleteonukulele.com, we will release a new recording of a different Beatles song featuring a different artist every Tuesday. A short essay will coincide with every recording, and each performance will include a ukulele. The project began on January. It sounds almost like a threat. Say, we will release a new song every week until our demands are met.
We're gonna cut off a finger and release a ukulele song.
So they started this. They started this on January 20th of 2009, and they're going to finish it on July 31st of 2012. And you just look through this, and yes, they are releasing dozens and hundreds of Beatles songs. Nice versions of them.
Here come on flat up, he come rolling up slowly. He got
You know what? This is actually good. It's hard to do a come together cover. I've heard so many bad come together covers.
And plus, when I found this, I was expecting like guys like me to like do Revolution Number 9, like in how can I arrange this so I just need the C, the F, and the G chord and nothing tricky.
Right.
But you'll see ones that were just like
They're really
multi-track recordings by professionals.
Diminished chords.
Well, you know how this started was that amazing How My Guitar Gently Wept guy in Central Park, which was amazing, right?
Yep.
And, well, I guess this is kind of following along in the spirit of that. Here's Leah Siegel. Listen to the picking.
Blackbird singing in the dead of night.
This is awesome, Andy.
Yeah, good find.
These broken wings and learn to fly.
Good for the Beatles and the ukulele.
And of course, you can just they're all MP3s. It's on our RSS feed, so you can just download them. That was my desire to see if I could find one Beatles song that I can actually learn and play. The answer to that is no, because they use, you know what? It's almost as if John Lennon and Paul McCartney, it's almost like they know a lot of chords that I don't.
Damn them. Damn.
Well, I mean, I know.
You're only using 4 strings. I mean, come on.
Yeah, how many combinations could there be?
Yeah.
I was 4 times as happy to find this. It was like that was a waste of 90 minutes of, ooh, this is a good one. Ooh, this is a good
They're all so good.
Ooh, this is
Someone help. When I was younger, so much younger than today.
This ain't Don Ho.
So this
I can tell you that right now.
These are great. These are great songs for like when you're doing a barbecue or a party, whatever. You mix those in because you got a bunch of people that like. I used to play. So I used to be a DJ for weddings a long time ago, and I did. I once played the electric slide 9 times. The bride would come over. I think they're ready for it again. I'm like, I don't think so. Anyway, so. 300 weddings later, there were certain songs that you love to put up. Like there was a Tori Amos version of "Smells Like Teen Spirit," and it was all.
Good.
And you play it, and you could see people just this
Sure, not
quizzical,
real
like,
danceable, but
no, you do it during the dinner, like
Yeah.
when they're, and you see this quizzical look, like they're like, I recognize this song, but
something
I
wrong.
don't recognize this song, and so ever since then, I've loved to put these cool covers. You kind of mix them into a party mix, and people, it adds a little spice to the whole thing. It's good stuff.
A Baroque orchestra version of Frank Zappa's Peaches and Regalia.
I love that song.
I found that a few weeks ago, and my God, it works.
How soon are we going to see Frank Zappa on ukulele? Now that
Yes.
I'd be happy to see Frank Zappa on iTunes. I was looking for 5 different tracks. I couldn't find any of them, and I just
Very
I
frustrating.
felt as though I was unloved by God
You're
on
like,
that
really?
day when I couldn't find them.
I think
He has
Amazon
so
has
much
a better,
stuff.
he
That's
does. That's
crazy.
part of the problem. Is there's a lot.
Well,
No,
he started putting out all that live stuff too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Shut up, play your guitar. Is there Zappa? I mean, I know I've bought.
There's some Zappa, but I wanted to recommend one of my favorite like ripped CD tracks, and one of them was a specific version of Peaches and Regalia that was on Ryko disc. Another one was this might get us the explicit tag, but there's a certain that ends with the word tornado that that is I'm quite fond of. That's a Frank and Dweezil collaboration that is not available.
I have to say, there's 49 Zappa choices on Amazon. Some stuff I'd never heard of. So maybe you might check Amazon.
I'll check again.
Yeah, because boy, I mean, some of this stuff. 'Tis a season to be jelly.
Yes. The man didn't spend a whole lot of time sitting on his hands. He usually had a guitar in them, and he was usually recording when that happened.
Yeah.
Have you seen that YouTube video of when he was on Steve Allen's show as a teenager?
Yeah. A little weird. He was weird even then.
He's totally gawky looking.
Yeah.
God, there used to be a really good Peaches and Regalia from Baby Snakes, and I think they took it down. For those of you in the audience, you might have thought you just had a stroke, but those were all actual words.
Look how many different Peaches and Regalia versions there are on Amazon.
These are mostly audio only. Oh, I see you're on the Amazon. Okay.
Yeah, the Amazon is where you want to go. But, I mean, there's 19, but maybe not the one. I don't know.
That song still, it's from, it's from like an early 70s album, right? It's really old. It's from a Mother's album.
Many of these are not performed by Frank Zappa. Here's Fish.
Well, there's a little bit of Dweezil pollution, just for what it's worth. He's a great guy. But he's one of the, you search on Zappa, and there's so much Dweezil doing Frank Zappa.
He's the one touring with the Zappa.
Steve Vai and stuff, yeah.
I think Organissimo, their version of Peaches and Regalia, must be considered something. I don't know what. Let's get your pick, why don't we, and move on here, Alex Lindsay.
Zappa pick of the week.
All right, so I have two picks. One is, the first one's Talking Tom. Have you seen Talking Tom?
Yeah.
For kids?
Yeah, some kid put it on my iPad. It's pretty fun.
Wait, hold on.
It's kind of endless hours of amusement. There's a lot of them.
My son really enjoys this one.
So you talk into it. It's a kitty cat. You talk into it.
Oh, it's like Carl, kind of?
My son really enjoys this.
Your audio's way low. You got to turn it way up.
Hold on. This is MacBreak. This is MacBreak. That's all it does.
Hours of fun.
And I'm just telling you.
My daughter loves talking Carl. You poke him in the eye.
Yeah, yeah. And there's all these little things you can do with my son. You can tell when he, you can hear it now. And so I can hear him change it. It's like this crazy ADD thing with the phone where he's going from Plants vs. Zombies to Field Runners to a bunch of little Dr. Seuss to this. So anyway, so that's for the kids. It's good stuff. For the adults, there is I've been playing around with we use a lot of hardware switchers, but I've been playing around with software switchers at my house. So my house is like the anti what I do at work, which is like how bare bones can I be, at least on the video end, and still get 3 cameras or a bunch of other stuff all mixed together and everything else. And so they just released, I've been playing around with this program called Wirecast and Wirecast Pro. And Wirecast, we use it a lot to actually do the streams, and we weren't using the edit stuff. But the edit stuff is actually built pretty well. I've got 3 HV40s that are all wired into my Mac Pro, and then I'm editing between them. And then I have a little whiteboard that I use ArtRage for on my laptop, and I've got like this whole little camera system that I'm all putting together. Anyway, it is if you're looking for kind of a software-based editor on the Mac. It is, and the PC. It runs on the PC. I just use it on the Mac. It is the new version is a lot easier to use, and it's a lot. It's pretty fluid. It's amazing how quickly you can do a presenter, which basically lets you find any laptop or any computer on their network and just present its screen like it's another camera. And it built in, it has all the streaming stuff, so you can stream on my Mac Pro up to 6 or 7 streams, different resolutions to different locations. You just kind of line them up and start streaming out. So it's a great little thing. If you want to see it in person tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, this is actually from Merlin's suggestion. So Merlin had suggested that I talk about our naming conventions and files, our backing up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I decided that we do in the Pixel Core, it's usually internal, that every Wednesday we do, or almost every Wednesday we do a stream talking about something. And so I decided that tomorrow morning at 8, I'm going to talk about how we kind of basics of how we do our how we do our organization of our files and our naming conventions, and also I'm going to show you the toaster that we use and the raw drives and how we manage that process.
Do you record these and make them available after you do it?
We record some of them.
This one you should record.
This one, well, we're going to do something that's a little bit more organized next in December. That's for MacBreak. That is like shorter and more condensed. This one is going to be really a Q&A and kind of a live stream. And but we'll definitely, we've been kind of keeping them live. We're incorporating a bunch of stuff to record them. in the right now. So it's just one of those things. Like it's so many. I'm doing the same thing you're doing normally, which is that I'm running the live mix and I'm doing all those other pieces. And so anyway, so it's you'll see Wirecast in action tomorrow because that's what I'm using for.
That sounds awesome, Alex. That's cool that you're doing that.
Really yeah, it should be fun, and people will be able to text message. I have our producer in my ear, and so people can go on the chat and they can chat stuff, and she's feeding questions into my ear, and then I'm answering them. So
that's a Squarespace site.
Pixel Core is a Squarespace site. Yeah.
Dang, who did your design?
I did actually. Not the picture was done by McKay. I did.
No, but this is really cool looking.
It works well, doesn't it? Look at that.
Yeah, so
I love me some Squarespace.
Yeah. No, it was I laid it out. There's some things that I would do differently now. We're kind of in another redesign at the moment, but it definitely and we do a lot of that's where the live stream is going to be.
So pixelcore.com/live-stream is what we should bookmark.
Yeah. And then if you're following me, I'll post it on Twitter and on the Pixel Core Twitter as well tomorrow morning to remind people. So if you want to remember, I'll post a straight URL to both those Twitters tomorrow. And but that's going to be using the Wirecast, and the Wirecast is brand new this week, the new 4.0, and so it's definitely worth. You'll see it kind of in action, and I'll probably talk about that a little bit as well.
Pixelcore.com/live-stream, or follow Alex at Alex Lindsay on Twitter or at Pixelcore for the corporate account.
And Telestream, I think, is the name of the company that makes
Telestream makes it. Yeah, it's German, I think, right?
No.
What's
They're
the
in
other thing
Sacramento.
Don't they make another thing?
They make Wirecast is the one. They also have Episode, which is the super high end compression.
And they
tool.
also bought, and this is probably what Merlin's thinking of, the
ScreenFlow.
Yeah, ScreenFlow. So they have ScreenFlow as well, and then they make some hardware stuff that turns SDI streams to IP, which makes it easier to deal with them. So it's good stuff.
I'm with you, Merlin. I'm just going to nod.
I no, seriously, that sounded like some kind of a meeting of Roosevelt's cabinet. I just heard a lot of letters.
My pick, and then we're going to run, is Google Voice, now in the iTunes App Store.
Is that today?
Today, as we spoke. In fact, run, and get it, because who knows? Apple, of course, didn't approve it very famously a year ago. In fact, Google has a little fun with Apple in the screenshots here on iTunes. If you zoom in and look, why, some of these messages were sent July 2009. So either this person doesn't get a lot of phone calls, or maybe these are the same screenshots Google submitted a year and a half ago.
No. Apple has said clearly they never rejected the app. It just got it has one of those old-fashioned desk drawers where the back of the drawer is a little bit low. So sometimes papers just sort of
we never said no. We just never said yes.
An oversight, a simple oversight, oversight.
And clearly, there's some really seriously agile development going on with the app.
By the way, there are only, as we record, 8 ratings, but all of them 5-star. Apparently, it does exactly what you would want it to do.
This is huge for me.
It's very huge.
I have a Google number, and it's on my business card, but I never use it.
To be honest, one of the big reasons I use an Android phone is for Google Voice integration, so I'm going to have to relook at this,
Yeah. It's awesome.
Maybe it'll
What's the actual name of the actual product?
Google Voice. Yeah, don't be fooled, because you could be fooled, but there are some very good.
Yeah, I bought that Black Swan thing. Don't get me started.
There are some alternatives that are not Google, but this one is from Google. If you look,
it's interesting. If you search for voice, it doesn't come up on the first page. You got to search for Google Voice.
Google Voice, baby.
Downloaded it. I'm so excited.
Got it. And somebody's saying in the chat room, no space, but I did it with a space and I found it. So, all right, thank you everybody. We appreciate you joining us once again. A reminder that special deal on Drobo through the end of the year for holiday specials. $100 on the new 4-bay Drobo. Go to drobo.com/MBW299er. MBW299er, and use the offer code MBW299. That is a new deal for Drobo, just for you through the holidays. Actually, it doesn't say exactly when the drop-dead date is on this, so I wouldn't wait. It does say for $100 in holiday savings on a 4-bay Drobo. Drobo.com/MBW299. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here. Now you get back to work. Break time is over.